and welcome to a special edition of The Locker Room, where the BS stops and the analysis starts. I am one of your hosts tonight, Kyle Anderson, and joining me as always, my partner in crime.
It's B. Jones in the locker room.
And Matthew Hirsch, he's on vacation this week. He'll be back for our next installment. Reggie Huffman is also on vacation. He'll be back, but this week we had to do this very special edition. We're talking about one of the biggest games that always happens every year in the state of Alabama, not to mention in Birmingham, the Magic City Classic. This is a big deal for a lot of people that don't know. It's Alabama A&M, the Bulldogs, taking on Alabama State, the Hornets, at Legion Field. It's a big spectacle. The bands, the fans, the alumni, everybody gets involved. So tonight, Brandon and myself, we're going to talk about this big classic. Why is it so big? What's the importance of it? And why is it that this rivalry goes bigger and better than some other rivalries that we all know about? So, Brandon, we'll go ahead and start off with the first question. What is it about the Classic that makes it a lot different than other rivalries that we hear about?
What really makes it different is it's a tradition that's been passed on from generation to generation. I don't have to go too far outside of my own walls. My family, for instance, we've been tailgating and making this a big family event. This is like a family reunion event for us. I think we'll have in the neighborhood maybe 110, 115 people in town. And this coming from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Kansas City, Missouri, Arlington, Texas, Pittsburgh, Tulsa, Oklahoma, all over the country. This has been a big deal. It's been a big deal in my family because my family is divided. Half of them went to Alabama A&M, half went to Alabama State. I chose to be different and go Southern University. But what makes it special is that when you look at the city of Birmingham, when you look at the football rosters of these two schools, half of the rosters come from the city of Birmingham. The biggest alumni bases for these two schools are from the city of Birmingham. So it's been a tradition that's been passed on, and it's only got bigger and better as time has gone on.
Now, the thing a lot of people don't understand about the Classic is this is not something that just popped up over the last couple of years. For a lot of people that don't know this, they first played in 1927 or 26.
1924.
1924.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they started playing on a regular basis at Legion Field in 1946. To let a lot of our fans know, that was 2 years before Alabama and Auburn started playing the Iron Bowl at Legion Field.
Right.
Some people will ask the question of, everybody knows about the bands,
mm-hmm.
but how do you explain to a lot of people that, hey, this matchup is not just about the bands? The bands is going to be impressive,
mm-hmm.
but it's bigger than that. It encompasses more. How can somebody that did not go to Alabama A&M or Alabama State or doesn't have a family member or is not into it, how can they understand how important that is?
All right, I'm going to give you an example of how important this is. I've been going to the Classic. I have gone to every Classic since I was 2 years old, all the way up until this point. The only years that I missed was 2003, 2004, and 2005. 2006, we had a Thursday night game, so I was able to make it. So the only years I've missed were the 3 years I was playing college ball down at Southern. When I say this game is important, this is one of those games that can lose you your job. We don't have to go back too far. We can go back to 1998, which is the one that it's classic within itself. 1998 is what spiraled this rivalry into what it is today. Alabama State came in on a winning streak, and these games weren't close. I mean, this was Alabama State dominating Alabama A&M. We talking about 51, 59 to 3 and things like that. And that kind of took a lot of the luster off of the Classic. 1998, Alabama A&M, first year in the SWAC, impressive. They had a 4-3 record. Alabama State limped into the game with one win. We go into the fourth quarter. Alabama A&M is up 28-0. That A&M faithful, they're all into it. Alabama State scores 28 unanswered in the fourth quarter, pushes it to overtime, and wins the ball game. And if you've ever been to the Classic, you know that tailgating starts on Tuesday or Wednesday and doesn't end until Sunday. Well, that day after the game, I saw people crying in the stands. I saw that entire west side of the stadium, which is A&M side of the stadium, clear out. RVs, 2 lanes, headed out of Legion Field. And the next morning, turned on NBC 13, and A&M had fired the head coach. That's how serious it is. It's an event, but this is just like any other rivalry. You have to win this game.
When you go back over the rivalry, too, when we looked at all the data, people will be shocked to know that all time, A&M holds the edge. But they've played, this will be the 76th time that they've met. But A&M holds the edge, 38, 34, only, one tie. One tie. And the funny thing about the tie, or I'm sorry, there was actually more than one tie, but there's only been one time in the history of this rivalry that neither team scored.
Yeah.
And it ended in a 0-0 tie. But when you look over the history of it, like Alabama A&M and Alabama State, both of them are averaging if you average their output, it's about the same.
Yeah.
So they're kind of evenly matched. What is it about the Classic, besides just the atmosphere and the fans, that makes people just want to go, okay, I don't understand, or I can't understand what's going on? Or is it something about because we all grew up Alabama-Auburn fans? Or is it that it's their Division I AA and it's hard for us to acclimate to that?
Well, to a lot of people, to appreciate black college football, you have to attend one of those big games. It's different. It's different. There are a lot of rituals and customs that are different. A lot of people don't understand because they've never been. But if you've been, no matter what the color of your skin is, you understand how important it is. And it's something that you want to do from that point forward. For example, my dad has a friend that's a diehard Alabama fan. He doesn't miss the Magic City Classic, and he hadn't missed one since about 1995. And this guy is, I'm talking about Danny Sheridan White, okay? But I think that one of the things that I can think of is that I'll tell anybody, go out and try it. Go out, see what it's about, watch the ball game, and I promise you, I've taken friends to the Magic City Classic who grew up going to Alabama and Auburn games, and they walked away impressed with the atmosphere. Everything from how loud the stadium gets, how the bands are involved in the game, how just everyone, the camaraderie, and then afterwards, the tailgate and just the whole family atmosphere.
Now, a lot of people would not understand that this is one rivalry where it just seems like every year it gets bigger, it gets stronger, even though it's been around for, like we said, 76 years. But it's like every year they just, when you think it can't get any bigger, it can't get any more intense, it can't grow any bigger or get more attention, it seems to do that. How is it able to do that?
Well, what's happening is the storylines. I remember when the Classic was nothing but a fashion show because Alabama State was in the SWAC. They made the move to the SWAC before Alabama A&M. So when you move to the SWAC, you move to your sports to Division I. You're playing Division I AA football. Well, Alabama A&M was playing Division II football in the SIAC. Well, we taking 63 scholarships compared to your 30 in their blowouts. But what happened was Alabama A&M and Morris Brown was supposed to be the other school to come into the SWAC. Morris Brown didn't make it, so it was Alabama A&M and Arkansas Pine Bluff. And Alabama State lobbied to get Alabama A&M into the SWAC. Once that happened and this game became even grounds, it became very important because now this is a conference game. Now, not only is it a conference game, it's a divisional game. So for you to make it back to Birmingham to play for a SWAC title, I have to go straight through the heart of my opponent. And that's what's made it so special. And every year, it seems like this game determines the Eastern Division of the SWAC. And the games are closely contested. 3 or 4 points is about the margin the last few years. In the last few years, the game has come down to the last possession. So it's made it bigger. What's making it bigger this year? Isaiah Crowell. Alabama A&M had the first team running back, the returning leading rusher in the SWAC. In comes Isaiah Crowell. Their running back feels gypped because now he was second team preseason. Isaiah Crowell was first team. So you have those things like that keeps the rivalry going and going.
One of the things that has come up to my attention about the Classic is a lot of people don't really understand that when Alabama A&M, especially coming into this game, only has one loss. So they're looking at if they can beat Alabama State and they can go. They got that final game against Auburn, which the way Auburn's playing, it looks like Alabama A&M could beat them.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking at probably having one of the best seasons they've had in a while.
Mm-hmm.
If they were to lose to State, what would that do?
Alabama A&M fans will never hear the end of it. Alabama A&M has only won one SWAC title since they've been in the league. Now, they've gone about 5 or 6 championship games and lost all of them to Grambling, but they've only won one. Alabama State they're the juggernaut that they have the money. Alabama A&M has done more with less. This whole preseason, all you heard was Alabama State, Isaiah Crowell, new stadium, the amount of transfers that they've been getting. Alabama A&M has done more with less. So for them to come this far and lose this game to Alabama State, it really kind of puts that damper on them. But Alabama A&M, over the last 15 years, has only lost to Alabama State 3 times.
It leaves me speechless because the more you look into the Magic City Classic, it's more than just a local game that only people in Birmingham care about. I mean, it's one of these things where not only does the whole SWAC care, the whole state really does. I mean, I know people will say that the Iron Bowl, the state stops. Yeah, but with this though, this is not more of everybody stops, and this is more like everybody just has a good time and enjoys themselves and goes and watches a hell of a game with all their friends, all their family. And like we were saying off air, some people may not come home for Christmas or Thanksgiving.
They come home for Classic.
But they're coming home for the Classic.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, if you look at some of the other things that Birmingham has, they've got the Steel City Classic, they've got the Labor Day Classic, got the Turkey Day Classic. The Magic City Classic is the one that is pretty much, people would say, is the crown jewel of anything that goes on at Legion Field.
Right.
When did that start to happen? Was that back in the 40s, the 50s?
Well, it originally happened when it first started. The Magic City Classic was always the big game. It took a hit when Alabama State left Alabama A&M and SIAC from a competitive standpoint. So that made the crowds go from 50,000 people down to about 40,000 people. And it was still a big event. There were more people tailgating than there were inside the stadium. It was still a big event. But what made it pick up is when Alabama A&M became a contender in the SWAC. They didn't just join, but they became a contender. When you started knocking off Southern, when you started knocking off Jackson State, and they just recently got their first win against Grambling last year in Grambling for the first time ever. So when you start doing that, you start producing NFL talent like Robert Mathis and some of the other guys, it's now becoming a big deal. And it's a deal from the standpoint of everybody has stepped their game up. And like I said, man, this game is just so important.
Looking at Alabama A&M's schedule, and for a lot of people that are wondering, we're talking about the Magic City Classic. This will be the 76th time that the Alabama A&M Bulldogs are going to meet the Alabama State Hornets at Legion Field. Alabama A&M is coming in with a 6-1 record. They started the year off winning 6 games in a row. First game of the year at Legion Field, they beat Tuskegee in the Labor Day Classic 7-6. Then they went on the road, beat Arkansas Pine Bluff 14-10. Then they beat Prairie View A&M 42-30 in the Lewis Cruz Classic. Beat Texas Southern at Texas Southern 42-13. Beat Grambling State in Huntsville 38-17, and then went into the Crampton Bowl and beat Mississippi Valley State 35-0. Their last game was against Alcorn State, and they lost 21-20. But looking at this, it's almost like if they lose, it's not by much. But most of their games, with the exception of the first 2, they've been winning pretty handily and scoring a lot of points. Can they do that against Alabama State? They
can. Alabama State have some deficiencies on defense. But I will say this. The games that they've blown open, those teams aren't really good. We're looking at Mississippi Valley. We're looking at Grambling. Grambling only has 1 win on the year. Yeah, I know it sounds odd, but Grambling only has 1 win on the year, and that was to, I think it was Lincoln. Hey, this is going to be a tough game. This is one of those games you go in, no one ever blows out anyone in this game anymore. So it's going to be a hard-fought one. So we're definitely looking forward to it.
Which is very interesting because the one loss that Alabama A&M has was when they lost to Alcorn State. But when you go to Alabama State's record, now Alabama State is 4-3. One of the 4 wins Alabama State had was at Alcorn State, and they beat them 54-14.
Yeah.
So, I mean, now I know some people will look and go, well, what does that mean? Well, Alabama A&M did beat Arkansas Pine Bluff, and Alabama State lost to them 21-24.
Yeah.
They lost to Bethune-Cookman, which Bethune-Cookman's always good,
Yeah.
38-28. But they beat Mississippi Valley State. They beat Grambling. They beat Alcorn. They beat Texas Southern. They lost their last game to Jackson State. So both of them are coming in after a loss. But like you've said before, that really doesn't matter when it comes to the Classic.
It doesn't matter at all. And like I said, man, the Classic is a resemblance of what HBCU football means. I mean, you look at the Magic City Classic, the Southern Heritage Classic up in Memphis, the Bayou Classic that I've played in, the Southern Jackson State game, the Florida Classic with Florida A&M and Bethune-Cookman, the Atlanta Football Classic, the Carolinas Classic. Now, the different games across America featuring these historically black colleges and institutions, and when you look at the attendance ratings at the end of the year, they're outdrawing a lot of the big boys when we're talking about the attendance. So, man, these games are important. The wins and losses are very important, and something that's been passed down, like I said, from generation to generation.
Now, when you talk about the HBC schools and the people that are asking what that means, that's the historically black colleges. Everybody always talks about Grambling. Everybody always talks about Bethune-Cookman. Everybody always talks about Mississippi Valley State or Prairie View A&M or Tuskegee. Why is it, do you think, that the Magic City Classic doesn't get as much attention on the national stage when people talk about the historical black colleges? Why is it that this game doesn't get put up there as one of the first games everybody talks about? Because we know how important it is, we know how big it is, we know the history, the tradition. Why is it not one of the top ones?
Probably from a name recognition standpoint. You look at Grambling and Southern, well, a lot of the recognition that we got is from being on NBC, Eddie Robinson, and for years that was the biggest classic, drawing over 70,000 people, 70,000 spectators, and over 100 and some thousand people to New Orleans. You look at the Florida Classic, that's really taking the torch with FAMU and Bethune-Cookman. That Classic draws 73. It's a sellout in the Citrus Bowl every year. All right. And it's one of those ones, it gets the attention because ESPN grabbed it. They put it out there like that. The Classic for a long time wasn't even televised. For a long time, it wasn't even televised. So we're talking about the success of a game that's not even televised. And let's look at the two institutions. Alabama A&M and Alabama State. Combined in the last 20 years, they've only won two SWAC titles between the two. Well, 3 SWAC titles between the two. So when you're talking about the top teams in the SWAC, you're talking about Jackson State, Southern, and Grambling. They're not quite at that level yet, but they're coming. They're coming. So that's kind of why reason. And even look at the Carolinas Classic that's played over in Charlotte between North Carolina A&T and South Carolina State. The reason why it's been up there for so long is because it was when they build that new stadium up in Charlotte, they moved that game there, and it just completely taken off. So the Magic City Classic is getting its just due. It's gone from one of those classics that you mentioned, like, oh, yeah, that's nice, to now it's one of the top 5 HBCU classic games in America.
There has been a lot of rumors going around that I know that it was mentioned last year, and then it was announced that they had signed a deal to stay at Legion Field. People have said that it is a possibility that both A&M and State want to move the game to their home campuses and possibly out of Legion Field. It looks like that's going to be, pushed further back, maybe another couple of years, because they just signed an extension. If that did happen, what do you think that would do? Would it be like the Iron Bowl where it didn't really hurt it, it just it helps out those universities?
I read that today in the paper, and both schools said that is not true. Neither school wants to move this from Birmingham. When you're in the position that they're in, you know the importance of it being here. If you move that on campus, it's still a rivalry, but it's just like any other game. But when you have that in Birmingham, you have all those people come. Classic tickets are sold in 48 states. All right, 48 states. You won't get that in Huntsville or in Montgomery. Alabama A&M Stadium seats 24,000 and some change. Alabama State Stadium sits around 28,000. Classic attendance is 70,000. So you're going to push away 50,000 people? I don't think so. The name recognition. One of the things that I have a cousin that plays with Alabama State right now, starting cornerback Lamont Boykin, is you come into a kid's living room and you say, how would you like kid from Birmingham to play in the biggest game in your own city? That kid might be getting recruited by UAB. He might be getting recruited by Southern Miss. They don't offer him the opportunity to do that. So that's a recruiting ploy for a lot of people, and that's how you keep pulling students, band members from out of the city of Birmingham. So no, neither school has, a want from both presidents and athletic directors. They want to stay here.
We've heard a lot of people talk over the years, especially this year, and many of them will say they're UAB fans. There are other fans that don't like Legion Field. It's fallen apart. Nobody wants to play there. You can't get anybody to go down there. The Magic City Classic and the Labor Day Classic, but really the Magic City Classic, you mean hands down, even other games that are played there, they will pack it out. They will get people down there. There are people that are down there, like you said, starting on Tuesday, starting to tailgate.
Yeah.
So does this not kind of dispel that myth that, it's a horrible place and nobody wants to play there?
It kills it. One of the things that we look forward to when I was at Southern University is making it back to Birmingham, playing at Legion Field. So that dispels that rumor. I think a lot of that has to do, honestly, I don't like to talk about it, but a lot of that falls upon racial lines. When was the last incident that you heard at Legion Field? Right. We can't think of one because there haven't been one. So Alabama and Auburn played there. Did anyone feel unsafe then? I think that's an excuse that people like to use. But like I said, classic time, there are people that have been parked there since Monday. No one's worried. No one's afraid of anything. So I think a lot of that is, people, like I said, a lot of that might fall upon racial lines. People have a problem with going into places that might not be in the highest of the socioeconomic category.
This area is going to make, just to let people know, the city of Birmingham alone is going to make close to $8 to $10 million off this game. That's just that day.
Yeah.
That's not counting the rest of it. And not to mention, they haven't even released the figures on how much they made the opening weekend when they had the Labor Day Classic and Alabama A&M played Tuskegee and North Alabama played and all these other schools were coming in here.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot deny that not only is this game got a lot of history, tradition, it's got a lot of family to it. Because like you said, it's everybody coming together, everybody, hey, I haven't seen you in a year, but we're coming home for the Classic.
Right.
To me, it almost sounds like it's an experience where the reason it makes it bigger is it's not just, hey, it's a football game and there's all this other stuff. It's everybody's here, the band's here, the family's here. It's a whole week of preparation, and oh yeah, by the way, there's a game.
Oh yeah, and it's competition. Tomorrow night, the Civic Center will be sold out for the Battle of the Bands. Alabama State's band and Alabama A&M's band is going to go at it in the Civic Center. And however many, with the Civic Center, see what, 15, 16,000 people? There's going to be that many people show up to watch the two bands go at it. There are going to be 100,000 people at the parade. And the biggest thing about the parade is watching the two bands go at it again. And then an hour before the kickoff, the stadium is going to be about 3/4 full. About an hour before the kickoff, while the team was on the field stretching. Why? To watch the bands go at it again. It's everything. We beat you at this. We beat you at that. We had more fans than you. It's competitive from every stretch of the imagination. And it wasn't too long ago that the Alabama A&M basketball game was played at the Civic Center every year. So these teams are competitive, whether it's soccer. You might not go to a soccer game all year. We play Alabama State? Yeah, I'm going. You might not go to a baseball game all year. But if it's Alabama State, Alabama A&M, yeah, I'm going. It's one of those rivalries where you work with the guy that goes to Alabama A&M. You live next door to a guy that went to Alabama State. Families are divided. Let me tell you about my family. My grandmother is a graduate of Alabama State University. She has 6 kids. The oldest girl is a graduate of Alabama State University. My mother is a graduate of Alabama A&M. The ironic part about it is my mom's twin sister is a graduate of Alabama State, and both of them were in the band at the same time. My mom's younger brother played at Alabama A&M. Her brothers played at Alabama A&M, one at Alabama State. My mom's twin sister, her husband played baseball at Alabama State. Their son is a starting corner at Alabama State. I have a cousin who's in the band at Alabama State, one in the band at Alabama A&M, and a cousin who's on the basketball team at A&M. So that's just a glimpse. They ain't even half the family, but that just lets you know how important it is because it stretches amongst family lines. Well, we have two very large tents. We have Alabama A&M tent and Alabama State tent. And like I said, we have around 115 people here from all across America. That's why it's big.
Now it's time for the big decision.
Mm-hmm.
Alabama A&M, Alabama State, they will lock horns this Saturday. Who's going to win, and what do you think the score is going to be?
If I had to make a decision right now, I would give a slight edge to Alabama State. And the reason being is that they're hungry. Right now, Alabama State, Jackson State, and Alabama A&M are right there with each other. Everyone has to win out to make it to the SWAC championship game. The last 2 years, if you don't count this year, Alabama State is 20-4. They got 2 10-win seasons with 2 losses. But in those 2 seasons, they have 0 championships. They have a championship game appearance, but they don't have a championship win. These guys are hungry. And I think that I'll take them 17-14. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I'll take them 17-14.
If you've never been, you need to go. This is a big deal. It's the Magic City Classic. Words can't describe it. Pictures don't do it justice. You have to be there, and you have to experience it. Legion Field comes alive. For people that say it's just an old gray lady, it sure as hell looks like a pretty hip old gray lady when that classic comes to town. If you ever want to go somewhere where it's just nothing but good food, hospitable people, you go down and you tailgate with everybody. It's an experience that you need to go be a part of if you've never been. It is the Magic City Classic, and trust me, for 75 years, they've got it right. And something tells me for the next 75 years, they're going to keep getting it right.
That's right.
So, well, this is pretty much going to wrap it up for us. This has been our special edition of the Magic City Classic, one of the greatest traditions in Birmingham and the state of Alabama. Make sure you go out, check it out, and if you don't, make sure you find out who won, because I promise you, if you want to make sure what's going on next week with all your coworkers, you need to be paying attention to the Classic.
That's right.
So, I guess that wraps it up for us. Brandon?
Hey, I'm out.
And I'm out. We'll see you next time in the locker room where the BS stops and the analysis starts.